Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I get you caught up with all of the news of the past week around the hockey world. We're approaching the annual Christmas break, and the standings remain as tight as ever. The World Junior Championship gets going this week, and we'll have all the details of that tournament. Plus, there were a couple of trades to talk about this week as well. We'll have the details of all of this, plus the Minor League Hockey Minute, the NCAA Hockey Minute, and our picks of the week coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 2, Episode 18, recorded on Friday, December 22nd, 2017. Christmas Break League Review.
Shut up and sit down.
Henrique pressures Vatanen. He sure has it again. Below the dot on the left side. Turned back by Fowler, who now attacks. T-shirt keeps it. Swept away by Manson, and Henrique comes away with it. Penalty will expire as he lobs it into the Devils' zone, goes and gets it, and scores on the backhand. What an individual effort by Adam Henrique.
What a play. This is a self-lob over the head of the Devils defender, and Adam Henrique is just going to turn the Jets on. Look at this little flip. Now he turns the Jets on, and he's inside of Vatanen. Backhand to forehand to backhand, and he chips it up and over the glove. What a beautiful looking goal from Adam Henrique.
Raquel trying to play it. Grabner breaks it up. Races out with Jesper Foss. 2-on-1. Here's Grabner's save by Gibson. And the rebound knocked down by Raquel. Oh, Raquel saved the goal. Gibson made a first save, a great one, and then Raquel made the second one. Might this be in, Joe?
I think that, to me, is in the net. Let's see what this man thinks.
Wes McCauley.
He doesn't know that they're booing him.
He's waiting for the signal to go. All right, he's got the signal. Wes?
After reviewing the play, it was determined that the puck completely crossed the goal line. We have a goal.
He's got a flair for the dramatic. Michael Grabner.
Skinner delays to the outside. Hanifin, one-timer. Skinner tipped wide off the stick of Werenski. Errant pass all the way back as we see in the center zone. And the Canes reorganize with Jeff Skinner. Skinner's drop pass finding Derek Ryan. Back in front, tipped on. They score! Noah Hanifin with a follow-up. And with 7:02 left to go in the second period, Carolina has a 2-1 lead.
The quick hands from backhand to forehand, and he doesn't let the puck go very far. It's just a quick release. And he tries to go up high over the glove. Rask gets a piece, catches a piece of the bar.
A lot of athletes do remarkable things on their birthdays. Charlie McAvoy turned 20 and wins it! Light the lamp and the candles on the cake. The Bruins win in a shootout 2-1 over Winnipeg.
Don't you just love confident athletes?
He wants the game on his stick.
There's nothing better.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 18 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name is Wayne Halley. I'm here with Steve Ball. How's it going tonight, Steve?
Going great, Wayne. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Good.
We're here doing our podcast during Christmas week, so both of us have a lot going on, so we're squeezing it in on a Friday afternoon. It's a little after 4 o'clock our time on Friday, so we've got all of Friday night's games in front of us, and of course Thursday night's games are all behind us. We normally record on Thursdays, but we're a day late this week, but we were 2 days late last week, so we're basically just getting caught up on things.
That's right.
So we've got 6 days worth of hockey to talk about this week.
And, there's quite a bit that's went on in the last 6 days, Wayne.
Yep, there certainly has. First and foremost, our teams are playing well. And then, of course, there were a couple of trades this past week, so we got to talk about that. And I thought because of the Christmas break is upon us that we'd take a look at the overall standings and see where every team stands and what our thoughts are and whether or not each team is going to make the playoffs. And then, of course, I don't know if you noticed, but the World Juniors start this week.
Yes, they do.
So we'll have a little bit about that.
That's going to be highlighted by that big outdoor game in Buffalo.
Yep. And then, of course, we'll have all that and all of the news of the week. First and foremost, though, we talk about our three teams every week. So let's go ahead and get started with that.
Yeah.
And let's get the Carolina Hurricanes out of the way. They had a relatively short week. This past week, 2-1 win actually it was a home game against Columbus back on the 16th. And then they lost 8-1, got their butts kicked at Toronto on the 19th. And that was what they called the 100th anniversary game, or I can't remember the 100th century game or something to that effect. It was basically a game played at Toronto on the exact date, 100 years later, that the NHL played its first games back in 1917. So they had that game, and it was a 2 o'clock in the afternoon game, very strange start time for a midweek game. And then this past weekend, they got a 4-1 win at Nashville on the 21st. That was actually last night. And I saw that game, and it was, I don't know, seemed like for everything that Carolina did wrong against Toronto, they came out and just... it was like the coach tore into them after that game, and he probably did. And they came out flying right from the puck drop. And built up a 4-1 lead after one. It was 4-0 at one point against Nashville, and then that was it for scoring. All the scoring happened in the first period in this game, and it was pretty quiet the rest of the game.
Yeah, and that's a very good Nashville team. They're playing very well right now. That team they beat.
Yep.
So Carolina, it may be the fact that they started at that weird time against Toronto and just not used to it. Playing in Toronto too,
Yeah.
That may have, I don't know, may just be a fluke. Those are the things you got to put out of your mind quickly, and it looks like Carolina did. And look out, they're on their way up.
Yeah, well, they've been playing well. Last week they played very well all week. And then going into this week, they were going into that Toronto game. They had a 3-game winning streak going, and then they turned right around after that, basically stumbling on their face in Toronto, and turned around and won big against Nashville, against, like you said, a very good Nashville team. So overall, encouraging for Carolina. They continue to climb up the standings. They're not quite in the playoff picture as of yet, but they're getting there.
Yeah.
And I think if they continue to play like they are, they're gonna win more than their fair share of games. So. The Darling situation still seems to be a bit of a struggle, though. I believe Darling started that game in Toronto.
He did play because I remember seeing. He played in that game.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not he finished, I actually don't recall.
Yeah, he did finish that game. So I guess they decided that regardless of what the outcome was going to be, they were going to let Darling play through all of it. I mean, it was 4-1 after 2, so it wasn't like a complete blowout all game. They were down 4-1 going into the third, but Toronto got 4 more goals in the third to really break it open. And some of those goals were his fault. Others were, you can't put all 8 goals on Darling in that game because the defense was leaving him out to dry. I mean, there were some point-blank shots that he had that most goalies in the league wouldn't have stopped, never mind one that seems to be struggling.
Right.
But the big struggle with Darling right now is mostly his rebound control. The puck seems to be bouncing around in front of him when he gets a shot. So he needs to get that stuff kind of ironed out at this point. He's let in some softies, and he's let up some rebounds that most NHL quality goalies are not letting up. So I know Carolina fans are a little upset with Darling's play so far. But Carolina is trying to let him play through these issues and get things turned around. But in the meantime, they have been playing Cam Ward more over the past couple of weeks while he has been going through these struggles. Right now, it's kind of more of a platoon situation at this point.
Right. And the only bad thing for Carolina as far as their good play of late is the Philadelphia Flyers. They are literally on fire.
Yep.
And have rocketed up the standings, the points chart, and now stand 2 points behind Pittsburgh for the 9th overall spot. In fact, I think Philadelphia has moved up to 10th in the Eastern Conference. So Carolina is now facing, just every single team in the Metropolitan Division is really jumping at the bit to get in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, and we'll get into that here in a bit. But let's talk about your Rangers. They had a kind of short week too.
They did. They had a short week. The night that we did the podcast, of course, we won. Actually, we talked about it on the last podcast, but we beat Boston 3-2 in overtime at a 5:00 start on Saturday. So we'll leave it at that. Picking up on, the next game was on the 19th, which was Tuesday night. We played the Anaheim Ducks, one of Henrik Lundqvist's best games I have seen him play in a long, long time. He just literally was phenomenal. Anaheim did shoot the puck very well, but he was solid in net. Really, there's really not much else to say about that game. Paul Carey had 2 goals in that game, his first 2-goal game as an NHL professional. But it was Henrik Lundqvist really was the player of the game, and that performance was, like I said, I haven't seen him play that well in maybe a couple of years now. He was exceptionally good. And then, of course, that gets us to last night against the New Jersey Devils. And last night was a wild night for me, Wayne, because that win against Anaheim propelled us into 3rd place in the Metropolitan Division for a couple days. And I was kind of feeling pretty good about things because I really felt like against the Devils, this game, we were going to be up for the challenge. And we were. I think we played very well against them. But as luck would have it, with the way things are going in the Metropolitan Division, sometimes that doesn't matter. And as the game wore on, I found myself looking at this game and then keeping tabs on the Columbus-Pittsburgh game, which wound up being a tie at the end of regulation. Yeah. Our game went into a tie at end of regulation. And then I also watched the New York Islanders Anaheim game, which finished up at a tie in regulation. All 3 of those games pertinent to where we stood, being in 3rd place. And the Islanders picked up a point, of course, and Columbus picked up a point. And even though Pittsburgh's not in the playoff picture at this moment, they picked up a point. So I'm like, God, we got to get this 2nd point against New Jersey just to keep these guys at bay,
Yeah, I was bouncing around games last night. You mentioned it. There was so many overtime games last night. I was just going right from one to another. Because generally what I do when there's a lot of games on, if the Bruins aren't playing or the Canes aren't playing, and I'm just generally watching games, I'll start with the games that's ending soonest, catch the end of that game. Then I move on to the game that's going to end next, catch the end of that game, and so on and so on. It seemed like every game I went to was either going into overtime or already in overtime or a shootout.
It's the way it was. And, I was like looking at my wife going, I hate to pull for the Penguins, but I have to. I have to pull for Pittsburgh against Columbus.
Yep.
To get the point. And fortunately, Pittsburgh won that game, and Anaheim won their game in overtime against a pesky New York Islanders team. So here I am going, oh my God, now the overtime period ended. We had some great shots, great chances to win that game in the overtime and blew it. And then it went into a shootout. And let's face it, Corey Schneider is playing very well this year. Unlike last year, he has really stepped up to the task. And the Devils are a good team. I'm giving them credit. But we lost in the shootout to them. And as I said, that extra point, it really hurts we didn't get it. We drop out of 3rd place because of the Devils won and Columbus picked up a point, so they moved up ahead of us, and that's the reason that we're sitting in the best wild card position right now. But really, on the outside looking in, if we had 3 more points, we'd be in 1st place. Actually, I'm not sure if that's correct if we win the tiebreaker, but we would be tied for 1st.
Yep.
So that point last night was really big that we left on the table. I hope it doesn't continue like this all year, Wayne, but it looks like it might.
It probably will. But right now, I think the Rangers are poised to jump into that third spot because Columbus really hasn't been playing that well. They lost to Pittsburgh. They lost to Boston. They lost to Carolina, I believe, recently.
Yep.
So yeah, they're having a lot of trouble right now. They're stealing points here and there, but their last 10 games they're 4-5-1, and the Rangers are 6-2-2. So, even though they're still sitting in that fourth spot, I don't think it's going to be long before the Rangers get back into that top three. All right, well, let's talk about the Bruins.
The best performing team of the week.
The best performing team of the week. Bruins had 4 games over the past week, a 3-2 overtime loss, of course, to the Rangers. We talked about that to start last week's show, so there's no need to rehash that game, particularly on my point of view. And then they had a 7-2 win against Columbus on the 18th, which is basically a blowout as far as I'm concerned. And then a 3-0 win against Buffalo on the 19th. And then a 2-1 shootout win last night against a very strong Winnipeg team.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Last night. So Charlie McAvoy getting the goal on his birthday, getting the shootout winner in that game. So so the Bruins get 7 out of 8 points so far this week. Probably the best in terms of how we look at things week to week in our podcast, the best week that the Bruins have had thus far this season.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Earning 7 of 8 points. We've yet to have a completely undefeated week that I'm aware of. Maybe there was a couple 3-0 weeks, but in terms of a 4-game week, this is the most number of points the Bruins have gotten in a 4-game week that we've been covering anyway for the most part. But all in all, I think the Bruins are playing about as strong as we could expect them to play. They're getting great performances out of some of their young stars. I mentioned McAvoy. You got Jake DeBrusk, who's been putting a lot of points on the board. You got Danton Heinen, who's been playing very well. And then, of course, the top line of Bergeron, Pasternak, and Marchand is playing as well as expected. So the Bruins right now look very, very strong. And as long as the core of rookies, because, at the beginning of the year, they were really only getting production from that top line, that Pasternak, Marchand, Bergeron line, and then a couple of those guys got hurt, and then they sputtered for a little while. But I think while those guys were hurt, the rookies, or I call them rookies, but basically anybody with less than 2 years experience is what I would refer to as the rookies. We're getting the bulk of the playing time, and basically over that course of time, we're getting a lot of confidence. So I think now that everybody's back and healthy, really the only player that I think, any major player anyway, that's out on injury is Adam McQuaid, and I think right now David Krejci is still battling some injuries too. He hasn't played the last couple of games, but Bruins are more healthy now than they had been for the better part of the first part of the season. So it's nice to see that when healthy, the Bruins can compete with just about any team in the league, because Winnipeg is no slouch of a team, and Columbus is a contender in the Metro as well. So I'm very happy so far this week. And then, of course, the Bruins goaltending, both goalies are playing very well right now. Tuukka was struggling earlier in the year when they weren't winning as often, and now he was very sharp last night. And Hudobin also got a win this past week. So, the Bruins are doing very well right now overall as a team. So let's just hope it continues.
Yes.
All right, so let's take a look at the standings around the league. Get them pulled up here. All right, over in the East, you have, like we said, your top 3 as of right now before going into Friday night's games. You have the Metro Division leading New Jersey Devils. Who'd have thought that we'd have been saying that before the year started, with 45 points, followed by Washington tied with 45, and Columbus with 44. Now, Washington has come from the depths. They started off real slow, and they've worked their way up into the top 3, so that's pretty scary on that front. They've been playing very, very well lately, and they're 8-2 in the last 10, and they've won 4 in a row. In the top 3 of the Atlantic Division, you've got Tampa Bay still way ahead of everybody else with 52 points, followed by Toronto with 43 and Boston with 41. So Boston is now only 2 points behind Toronto, and they have 3 games in hand. So just the games in hand alone, even if they only win 2 out of 3, are going to leapfrog Toronto into second place into the Atlantic Division.
Right.
And then your two wild card teams right now are the Rangers with 42 and the Islanders with 40 points. And then on the outside looking in, you've got Pittsburgh with 39, Philly with 37, Carolina with 37, Montreal with 34, Detroit with 33, Florida with 31, Ottawa with 30, and Buffalo way back in the pack with 23 points. Now, as far as teams that are jumping out at me, both good and bad, of course, we've mentioned Washington. Toronto has kind of been sputtering, but they are about to get Austin Matthews back, so that will turn them around. I'm pretty confident in that.
Right.
Philadelphia, you mentioned, with the 7-3 in their last 10. They've been playing very well lately.
Yep.
We'll see how long that can continue. And as far as, Montreal's been playing very well of late, too, 6-3-1 in their last 10, but they're still quite a ways back from the pack. They're 6 points out of a playoff spot at the moment, but it's definitely within reach for them.
Yeah.
And then the four teams at the bottom, Detroit, Florida, Ottawa, and Buffalo, seem to be falling off at this point, in my mind.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Detroit they're virtually on their way out. I think they could still pull themselves back in, but if you consider the teams that are ahead of them and how those teams are playing, it's going to be a very difficult task for Detroit. I don't think they'll do it. So
yeah,
and it's getting to that point now where you almost played 50% of your games. To mount a comeback of 6 points just to get in the playoff. In fact, 7 points. Detroit needs 7 points to be in a playoff position. It's getting tough. That's getting extremely hard to do.
Yeah, because we are approaching the halfway point, and it's going to take a while to make up that many points. You're
going to have to play 8-10, 8-2, 8-2, 7-3. You're going to have to play that kind of hockey and to mount a comeback. For 30 games, 25, 30 games. So it's getting tight for them to do that.
And right now realistically speaking, even though Detroit is only a point behind Montreal, Montreal, as long as Carey Price stays healthy, is always a threat, even though they are still 6 points out of a playoff spot. And the team right above them, Carolina, is only 3 points out of a playoff spot, so they're within reach. They've been playing very well at 5-3-2 in their last 10 with that hiccup. Now, if you look at goal differential, right now we've got every team that's in the playoff is on the plus side of things. Every team that's out is on the minus, and we've talked ad nauseum about how that goes.
Right.
And you look at some of these teams now. Detroit, Florida, Ottawa, and Buffalo are all 15 or more on the underside of 0 in that category. Montreal is at a minus 14, and Carolina is a minus 12. However, if you remember, Carolina has 3 games that I can think of off the top of my head where they lost 5-1, 5-1, and 8-1. Now, the 2 5-1 games were 2-1 games going late into the third. And then you blew it open 5-1. And then the 8-1 game against Columbus, they were never really in that one. So these are just 3 games I'm thinking of off the top of my head. There may be more, but these are ones I can think of. And if you take those goal differentials in those 3 games out of the picture, so you got 4 goals, and 7 goals. That's what, 15 goals?
Yeah.
That's a 15-goal swing. You take those 3 games out of it, and Carolina's all of a sudden a +2.
Right.
So I keep saying that they're a better team than their record indicates, but of course they still have to show that on the ice. But that could happen. And of course Philadelphia is only a -1, so they're a dangerous team as well. And then the one team that is a -10, Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the defending Stanley Cup champions. You could never count them out, and they're only a point out of the playoffs. So
that's right. As far as I see it, I still say, and maybe it's the Columbus Blue Jackets that fade out of this, but I don't think that we're looking at the top 3 teams in the Metropolitan divisions right now.
Yeah, I see the East as 12 teams in and 4 out right now.
Yep.
I see everybody from Montreal and up being in, and everybody from Detroit down to Buffalo being out.
I agree.
In terms of realistically having a shot at making the playoffs, I don't think Detroit, Florida, Ottawa, and Buffalo have the players to make a run to get back into things. But Montreal, with Carey Price healthy, Carolina, if they start playing better defensively, Philadelphia is only a point or 2 out. Pittsburgh as well. They're a Stanley Cup champion, the defending Stanley Cup champion anyway. those four teams, even though they're on the outside looking in, all four are capable of making a run.
Right.
So, all right, well, let's look at the West. In the West, you've got the Central Division leading Nashville Predators sitting at 46 points, but Winnipeg and St. Louis are 2 and 3, are also at 46 points. So it's basically down to tie breaks to determine those three teams.
That's right.
In the Pacific Division, you've got L.A. with 48, Vegas with 46, who'da thunk, and San Jose with 40.
Yep.
And then the wild card in the West is Dallas with 41 and Chicago with 39. And then on the outside looking in, you've got Minnesota with 39, Calgary with 39, Anaheim with 38, Colorado with 35, Vancouver at 35, Edmonton at 34, and Arizona with 19. To me, the West is wide open. I see only one team out of the picture. Everybody else has a shot.
I agree.
At this point.
Edmonton can come back. They're only 5 points out. They can still make a mount, go on a run and make that up. Unlike the Detroit Red Wings, Edmonton has the scoring power and, I don't see these teams that are ahead of them, that's the other point, being unsurmountable. They can catch up to Colorado and Anaheim quite easily.
Well, they're only a point behind those two anyway.
Right.
And Edmonton's won 3 in a row. They're 6 and 4 in their last 10, so they have been playing better of late.
Yep.
And a lot of that, of course, can be attributed to Cam Talbot being back from injury.
Right.
That's a big piece of their puzzle, although he hasn't been back for 10 games, but he has been back for 2 or 3 anyway.
Right.
And of course, Edmonton's been winning since he came back. So, Edmonton's a dangerous team sitting down there in that almost last spot.
Right.
There's a lot of teams that are definitely going to be afraid of them right now.
Right. I think I said it before. A healthy Anaheim Ducks team is with Kessler hasn't played a game yet this year. Ryan Getzlaf just returned from that cheekbone fracture.
And Corey Perry's been out.
Corey Perry's out.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at that team, and we're missing another guy, Wayne, and I can't remember who it is. But if you look at that team, healthy, they I believe
they're one of the best in the West for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Calgary Flames. Calgary Flames are a very good team. I've been watching them play, and catching highlights here and there, listening to scores. They are competitive. Johnny Gaudreau is having a lights out year. He's playing phenomenally, and they have a very good defense.
Yep.
So those two teams, I see them I really believe they're playoff teams, and you'll find out my feelings on Vegas in the power rankings for the show.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing what Vegas is doing. But you're looking at the Vegas Golden Knights, and the one thing that jumps out at me with them is their home record.
Yeah.
We've talked about it a little bit in the past, but they're right now at 14-2-1 at home. So when you have that kind of a record, all you have to do, if they just maintain a 500 record on the road, just 500, not even a winning record on the road, and continue to play as well as they are at home, they're easily in the playoff picture and probably will have home ice advantage if they keep up that pace.
Oh yeah, there's no even, and I'm looking at it. The only team that comes close to their home record, in fact, it's surprising to me. You have Tampa Bay, who has an identical home record. Okay,
yep.
But outside of Tampa Bay, the only team that comes close is the New York Rangers' home record, and of course the Washington Capitals. The Rangers actually have a little bit of a better record than Washington, having played one more game. But no one else touches their home record.
Yep.
So,
which is why I'm amazed that Carolina was able to steal a win out of there. Now it was either overtime or a shootout win. Can't remember which. It was one or the other. But they still managed to come out of there with 2 points, which not many teams can say right now.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think the makeup of the Vegas team. They don't have any bona fide stars, but they have a bunch of really good. They have 4 lines of really good players.
Right.
Like essentially, they have 4 third lines if you want to really look at it that way. And when you're playing against 4 third lines, there's a point where when other teams are putting their third and fourth lines out there against Vegas, the team that's on the ice for Vegas is better than the team that's on the ice for the opponent.
Right.
So the NHL. I guess did a pretty good job of if they wanted Vegas to be competitive year one, and we didn't think it would happen. We were looking at this team in the preseason. We're like, there's no way this team's going to be any good. They don't have any stars. They don't have any big names. And then when their goalies got hurt, we're thinking, oh, here they go. This is it. Yeah. They're going down the standings, but they continue to win. Now their number one goalie, Marc-Andre Fleury, is healthy again. And since he's been back, they've been playing extremely well. They're 7-2-1 in the last 10. They've won 3 in a row. It's going to be a hard team to knock out of the playoff picture.
Right.
Now, there's some teams that can do it. Like we both feel there are 4 teams that are right now sitting on the outside looking in that have a real legitimate shot of jumping over them. Edmonton, Anaheim, Calgary, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Can get back into the playoff picture, but it's going to take some work.
Well, as I see it, too, Vegas now controls their destiny quite easily.
Yep.
They have a 6-point lead over San Jose, who's the next closest team. So they unless something happens and things start going south, the confidence factor, the fact that they do control their own destiny quite handily, really starts to, give them added, boost each game. They know going into the game, hey, we've got a 6-point lead on the next place team. We're in second place. These teams like Calgary and Anaheim are going to have to just go on an unbelievable winning streak just to get into the playoff picture, much less come close to tying us. So that's playing in their mind. I don't think they'll get overconfident. And the further along, another 10, 15 games, hey, it's pretty well a fact they're going to make the playoffs. So
you're calling it. They're going to make the playoffs.
I was going to wait till the power rankings, but I'll say it right now. Vegas Golden Knights are going to make the playoffs. I mean, I might be 20 games early, and some people are saying, wow, you're really going out on a limb there. But, I just don't see, with that road record, and they got a 500 with that home record and a 500 road record, I just don't see how they're going to collapse and fall apart so badly.
Yep.
I'm
so
shocked.
They would be if it happens, they'll be the first team since the '67 expansion to make it to make the playoffs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that. I'll take your word for it. Yeah.
I believe it is. I don't know if any of because the after the '67 expansion, there was a major expansion when the WHA. Ceased to operate, and 4 or 5 or 6 or however many teams from the WHA got folded into the NHL. I don't know if any of those teams made the playoffs or not that first year that those WHA teams came in. But definitely in the modern era, since I know going back to when the NHL was a 21-team league, all the teams that were added since those years, none of them made the playoffs year one.
Right.
So you're talking the Minnesota, Nashville, Columbus, Florida, Tampa Bay, all those teams that were added in the early to mid 90s. None of those guys made the playoffs in year one. So yeah, and don't look now, but the Chicago Blackhawks are in the playoffs.
Yeah, they've come back.
Yep.
That's going to be a dogfight, though. I really think that Chicago is going to have to really work hard to make the playoffs this year. I see Calgary and Minnesota both giving them a run for their money. So we'll wait and see there. But I think, I don't know, I don't see any of those teams that are in the Central 1, 2, and 3 fading. So I think Chicago and Minnesota and Calgary, Chicago and Minnesota are going to go toe to toe.
Yep.
For that last spot, and it'll be tight. Chicago may make it. I think,
and Dallas could end up in that dogfight too.
Yeah.
Because Dallas, they're sitting in that top wild card, but they've played more games than all the other teams behind them. So they're going to lose ground when those other teams make up those games in hand. So. No, I think the West right now is more unpredictable and harder to determine who's going to make it because there's so many teams. I mean, you go all the way down to Edmonton in that next to last spot, and they're only 5 points out of a playoff spot, and they're sitting only 1 point or one spot out of dead last in the West. So it's a logjam in the West. In the East, I think things are starting to look a little bit more clear, but in the West, I got no idea.
That's true.
We could be looking at, a first place LA team, although I doubt it's going to happen, but a first place LA team ending up out of the playoffs and almost a last place Edmonton team in the Pacific. So you never know
right
what's going to happen. So All right, let's move on. We've got some transactions we need to talk about this week, and both involve the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yep.
Defenseman Jamie Alexiak was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins by the Dallas Stars on Tuesday for a conditional 4th-round pick in the 2019 NHL Draft. Alexiak was the Stars' first-round selection in the 2011 NHL Draft. The 24-year-old has 3 points in 21 games this season and 22 points in 140 NHL games with Dallas. The Stars will receive the better of Pittsburgh's own 4th-round pick or a choice acquired from the Minnesota Wild. So it'll be whatever. I guess they have 2 4th-round picks as of when this trade was made, and they'll get the better of the 2. So it looks like Dallas kind of gave up on Alexiak there.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, he was essentially their 7th defenseman, 6/7/8, whatever you want to call it. So they weren't using him as much as one would think. But obviously they decided to move on from him, and Pittsburgh needs a little bit of help on defense. And Alexiak has only been playing. He only played 5 games so far this month.
What do you think about the speed factor, Wayne? He's a big guy, man.
He is a big dude. He's 6'7", 255.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that's Dallas saying, that he can't keep up. You know, they drafted him in an era when size was, even though, it was only a couple of years ago that he got drafted, 2011. But in 2011, if you think about it, they drafted him 2011 mere days after the Boston Bruins won the Stanley Cup on the backs of 6'9" Zdeno Chara.
Yeah.
So a lot of teams were thinking back then.
Yeah. They had a big team. The Boston had a big smash mouth team.
Right. So back then the thinking was bigger players were still the way to go.
Right.
When they drafted him in the first round, 14th overall. So. And clearly today, that's not the way it is. Boston switched their strategy to a younger, faster, smaller team, as has most teams that are successful nowadays.
Right.
The era of the big, giant, behemoth players is quickly going away. So basically it looks like Dallas is just changed their needs at D, and Alexiak became expendable. So and Pittsburgh's a little light on defensemen in terms of overall depth, so they decided to add him on, and it only cost them a 4th-round pick. So
right, and they'll probably make him flourish. You know how Pittsburgh is; they grab guys that that aren't playing well for the team that they're on. They take them, mold them into a frontline guy, and they win Stanley Cups. That's how they are. They capitalize on what they have and the opportunities they get very, very well. That's the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yep. I mean, yeah. So, and he did play his first game with Pittsburgh last night, and he got more ice time in that game than his previous 4 games with Dallas. So he hadn't played for Dallas since December 9th. So he was basically sitting in their press box for the last couple of weeks. So they took a guy who was basically collecting cobwebs and moved him on for a 4th-round pick, and Pittsburgh put him right in the lineup. He didn't do any scoring. He didn't get on the score sheet or anything, but he had 27 shifts, 17 minutes of ice time, so probably used him in their 3rd pairing. I didn't watch that game, or at least I didn't. I caught the end of the game, but I didn't watch the game in terms of watching for how Alexiak would do. But yeah, so minor trade there. And then the other trade concerning the Pittsburgh Penguins, they got goaltender Michael Leighton back on Tuesday in a trade with the Arizona Coyotes for forward Josh Archibald, goaltender Sean McGuire, and a 6th-round pick in the 2019 NHL Draft. Pittsburgh also received 4th-round pick in the 2019 draft as well. Leighton, who's 36, is 37, 43-4 with 10 ties, a 2.98 goals against average, and a .900 save percentage in 110 NHL games, and 53 starts. It's not a lot of starts for a 36-year-old. With the Blackhawks, Predators, Flyers, and Hurricanes. He was 2-2-0 with a 3.43 goals against average and .870 save percentage in 4 games with Carolina last year. Leighton has spent this season in the AHL and will report to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, also of the AHL. He played 7 NHL games since 2009-2010 when he was 8-3 with a 2.46 goals against average and .916 save percentage in the playoffs, helping the Flyers advance to the Cup final, where they lost to the Chicago Blackhawks. I believe they beat Boston that year, too. believe that was the year that they came back from a 3-0 deficit to beat Boston in 7. We Bruins fans don't like to think about that one. Archibald, who's 25, has no points in 3 games with the Penguins this season. He has 3 goals in 10 games with Pittsburgh last year and was scoreless in 4 games during the Stanley Cup playoffs. The 3 goals are his only points in 14 NHL games. He was Pittsburgh's 6th-round pick in the 2011 NHL draft. Maguire, who's 24, was Pittsburgh's 4th-round pick in the 2012 NHL draft and signed with the Penguins on April 6, 2016 after playing 4 seasons at BU. He has split the past 2 seasons between Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and Wheeling of the ECHL. So, and this is another trade that's kind of minor in the grand scheme of things, moving some players that were basically collecting cobwebs, sitting in the press box, moving them to other teams. I know Arizona will probably have Archibald in the lineup every night going forward, and he wasn't really playing for Pittsburgh, and right. And then at the same time, Leighton can give Pittsburgh some much-needed depth on goaltender, and that was exposed when Matt Murray was injured. Mm-hmm. When Matt Murray was out, Pittsburgh was struggling mightily without having him. So they've been able to shore up some of their goaltending. Although I wouldn't label Leighton as an NHL caliber goalie now, but at least it gives them a little bit of depth.
Right.
So, and then, of course, Arizona gets a goaltending prospect in return, Sean Maguire. But that's kind of a long-term prospect. He's not a guarantee by any stretch.
That's right.
So, minor deal overall. All right. Did you see any other transactions that you wanted to talk about?
No. I did not even know about the second one there, Wayne. But those are the only ones I know of or have seen online on NHL.com.
Yeah, that's the only ones that I saw as well. Now, there was a very, very minor trade also on the same day as those other two. Gregory Chase, basically an American Hockey League player, got traded to Florida from Edmonton for future considerations, which will probably end up being nothing. So, all right, let's talk about injuries then. And there weren't many this week. It was kind of a quiet week in terms of injuries.
That's right.
Did we talk about Brock Besser last week on his injury? Okay.
Not that I don't believe we did.
He got hurt. He's Vancouver's young star. He does not have a fracture in his left foot, but it remains unknown when he'll return to the Canucks lineup. Besser, who leads the Canucks and all NHL rookies with 17 goals and 30 points, was injured blocking Calgary Flames defenseman Mark Giordano's shot 14 seconds into the second period of a 6-1 loss on Sunday. The 20-year-old forward crawled off the ice, limped into the locker room without putting any weight on his left leg, and was on crutches with a walking boot on Monday. He had 16 points and was the NHL's Rookie of the Month in November after leading the league with 11 goals in 15 games. Besser started the season on Vancouver's new top line with center Bo Horvat and left wing Sven Berterci, but all three are injured. Horvat fractured his foot on December 5th and is expected to miss another 2 to 4 weeks, and Berterci broke his jaw when Giordano clearing attempt hit him in the face on December 9th and is expected to miss another 3 to 5 weeks.
Right.
So I guess the Sedins are back on the top line.
I'll tell you this, man. And I picked Charlie McAvoy, but if it ended today, Brock Besser is the Calder Trophy winner. And there's no doubt about it.
Yep.
He's having that kind of a season.
Yep.
Of course, he is playing for Vancouver, so there's plenty of room for him to be very successful. But it doesn't matter. He is odds on. Before this injury, the Calder singled out as the Calder Trophy winner. There's really nobody that's going to come close. Nico Hischier, none of those guys are in his league at this point.
Yeah, and those guys on that top line are in Vancouver are definitely a big part of their future.
Right.
So yeah. And that's probably why Vancouver has been struggling of late too. We're having those three young players all being out at the same time,
right?
Leaving the team with the Sedins, who they don't want on the top line. Leaving the Sedins there as their top line by default is not good for them. So,
right.
All right, defenseman Shea Weber left the Montreal Canadiens on Monday to have a foot injury reevaluated. Coach Claude Julien wasn't sure how long Weber will be sidelined the Canadiens play the Vancouver Canucks at Rogers Arena in the second of a season-long 7-game road trip on Tuesday. We're going to shut him down for a little bit, Julien said. His situation's not getting better. He's got an injury in the foot area that got better, and then it gets worse again. So we're going to send him home and get him reevaluated. Weber missed 7 games at the end of November before returning to play the Detroit Red Wings on December 2nd. He averaged 22.44 of ice time in his past 6 games, including 22.58 in the outdoor game in a 3-0 loss to the Ottawa Senators at the Scotiabank NHL 100 Classic at Lansdowne Park in Ottawa on Saturday. He did not practice in Vancouver on Monday. He's still playing, but he's certainly not comfortable there, so we need to get this solved. We're going to send him home and get our doctors to look at him again, Julien said. He was trying his best at the end. I think the best thing to do is shut him down. He's still playing, but he's certainly not comfortable. Just repeating what I already put. So, bottom line is, he's going to be out probably for at least a few games at this point.
Extended. Yep. It's not going to be 1 or 2 games.
So, and he's obviously outside of Carey Price is probably their best player, arguably.
Probably so.
And that's going to make it tough for Montreal to continue their climb up the standings.
I agree. But they can do it.
With
Carey Price, they can do it. You know, somebody's got to get hot, step in for Shea Weber. They can do it. They are capable of doing that.
Yep, for sure. All right, Toronto Maple Leafs center Austin Matthews could be in the lineup against the New York Rangers on Saturday.
Let's hope not. I mean, nothing against Austin Matthews. Take an extra day to get feeling better, Austin.
Matthews said Friday that a decision will be made after the morning skate that morning. He missed the past 6 games because of a concussion sustained during a 4-3 win against the Penguins on December 9th. Matthews was injured when he collided with Maple Leafs defenseman Morgan Riley with 2:50 remaining in the third against the Penguins. He returned to play 2 more shifts, but said he was not feeling well later in the night and the next day. Matthews confirmed Friday that he did sustain a concussion on the collision. Matthews leads the Maple Leafs with 26 points in 26 games. Toronto is 6-4 in the 10 games that he's been out so far this season. Yeah, safe to say Matthews coming back will be a huge, not only just a talent boost for them, but just an overall moral boost for them.
A shot in the arm for the entire team.
Yeah,
really. I mean, if he steps onto the ice, even if he plays limited minutes, it's a big boost for the team. And
now, where's that game?
That's Toronto? It's in the Garden. We got shellacked in Toronto. Remember, we were behind that game 5-0 and came back and tied it at 5-5. I know.
That's right. Yep.
And then they came out and scored 3 more goals, made it 8-5. That was a wild game, but we didn't deserve to win that game. Toronto that was one of those games where their offense just stepped it up into another level.
Yeah, well, if Matthews comes back, and he'll probably be back, I'd be surprised if they're talking about it now. They're you know how the Toronto press is.
Oh yeah,
they're not going to feed them anything that then he's going to turn around and not play.
Right,
he'll probably be back. But question is how hard will he go at it? Wonder if he'll be tentative at all.
It'll be interesting.
Yep. All right, that's all the injuries I came up with. Of course, there were a bunch of players that were put on IR this week and players taken off, but a lot of those injuries we've already talked about. So let's move on to suspensions and fines, and we actually had a couple of those this week as well. Detroit Red Wings forward Justin Abelkader has been fined $5,000, the maximum allowable under the collective bargaining agreement, for spearing New York Islanders defenseman Scott Mayfield on Tuesday, the NHL Department of Player Safety announced. The incident occurred at 19:17 of the first period in Detroit's 6-3 win at Barclays Center. Abelkader was assessed a minor penalty for slashing. I didn't see the play, but clearly it was one that deserved a fine. I don't know what makes them decide to fine players for essentially what is a minor penalty, and what made this slash worth a $5,000 fine and other slashes not. Is it harder than normal or what?
Maybe.
I guess I have to see the play.
And I watched part of that game. Of course, pulling against the Islanders as I have been, but I didn't see the slash. But maybe somebody in the video control room for Detroit says that's worthy of a fine. And
premeditated, maybe?
Yeah, gets in touch with the NHL safety board and says, look this play over. This is kind of vicious. I could see that happening, where you don't know while you're watching the game. You see the play and everything, and nothing's discussed about it. the announcers may say, well, that was kind of harsh, but he's not being given a game misconduct. The next thing you know, you read about it the next day in the paper. It could be that the folks behind the scenes at Detroit just said, take another look at that.
Yeah, I just don't see what makes this a minor penalty for slashing, but a $5,000 fine, but not a strong enough slash to warrant a major penalty.
Right, or throw them out of the game. Yeah. I agree with you. The only thing I can think is that somebody got in touch with the league from Detroit.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I guess we'll have to see these plays. I didn't see that one, so I can't judge whether or not that deserved a fine or not. But this other the suspension that we're going to talk about, I did see the play, and we'll talk about that. Colorado Avalanche defenseman Erik Johnson has been suspended for 2 games without pay for boarding Tampa Bay forward Vladislav Nemestikov during the NHL game number 505 in Colorado on Saturday, December 16th. The NHL's Department of Player Safety announced on Sunday. The incident occurred at 16:57 of the second period. Johnson was assessed a minor penalty for slashing and a major penalty and game misconduct for boarding. Under the terms of the collective bargaining agreement and based on his average annual salary, Johnson will forfeit $64,516. So, I don't know, did you see this play?
I did not see this play, no.
Oh, it was pretty vicious. It could have been a lot worse for Nemestikov. Basically what happened is, and apparently something happened at the other end of the ice that the camera didn't see between those two players. But what the camera did catch was what Erik Johnson did to Nemestikov going back up the ice towards the other play. Basically, Johnson chased Nemestikov up the ice, and Nemestikov had the puck, briefly going up the ice. But at the time of this incident, he didn't have it. And he caught up with Nemestikov, gave him a fierce two-hand slash right on the wrist. And then right after he slashed him, he gave him a shove when he was only about 15 feet from the boards and just threw him right into the boards. And if Nemestikov wouldn't have turned himself so that he went in and hit shoulder first, if he'd have gone in head first, we'd be talking about a serious injury for Nemestikov. He went in the boards real hard.
Wow.
It was very, very dangerous play, and when I saw that, I'm like, oh, there's no way Johnson's not going to get suspended for that. And quite frankly, I was surprised he didn't get more. That's how hard this hit was.
He was thrown out of the game on that play?
Yeah, he got the penalty for slashing, which was that alone could have been a major.
Sure.
That's how hard he hit him. And then the boarding was clearly worthy of a major because it was premeditated. And he did it knowing that it was going to throw him into the boards. So, Nemestikov went hard into the boards. And it was one of those where everybody in the crowd just immediately goes silent because it could have resulted in serious injuries for Nemestikov. So, that's the kind of crap you don't want to see in the game at all.
I agree.
There's people that are against fighting and all that, but, that's fine. But, this is the kind of stuff you don't want to see in the game. So I imagine the next time these two teams play, Colorado and Tampa Bay, even though they're in two different conferences, there's going to be people going out looking for Erik Johnson's number for sure. So, all right. Now, as far as other interesting stories going around the league, we got an arena issue to talk about. Some news came out of New York Islanders camp that they won the bid to build an arena at Belmont Park in New York, and that was selected by New York State. And co-owner John Ledecky said he hopes to start construction quickly. That is our mantra moving forward. We want to play in this facility as soon as possible, Ledecky said after the announcement was made at Belmont Park on Wednesday. The Islanders' proposal includes an 18,000-seat arena, a hotel, 435,000 square feet of retail space, and a 10,000-square-foot quote-unquote innovation center. I'm not sure what that's talking about. That would be developed with input from residents. Our fans deserve this, Ledecky said. This is about a legacy for them. This is about being community stewards of a great team, a great franchise. This building, this world-class, state-of-the-art, third-generation building that gives them the reward that they deserve so justly for hanging with the team. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman said getting a new arena was important for the Islanders. It's not about relief, Bettman said. I'm happy for Long Island. I'm happy for the Islanders fans. I'm happy for the Islanders players. I think this is a great day for the franchise and a great day for Long Island. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said was in attendance and asked Commissioner Bettman if the Islanders could at least play some games in Nassau Coliseum while the new arena is being built. The Coliseum was renovated after the Islanders moved to Barclays Center, and has fewer than 14,000 seats for hockey. The Islanders are committed to playing at Barclays Center next season, but it's unclear where they would go after that. We're going to have to take a look at it, Bettman said. This was a recently made request which we will respond to at the governor's request. I think it's really, really, truly where this team belongs, Tavares said. That's John Tavares, of course, their captain. New York Islanders are called the Islanders for a reason. It's exciting news, obviously. We have some time left playing at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and we've got to make the most of it and build off the success we've had there for the last couple of years. Tavares maintained he wouldn't rule out re-signing with the Islanders before the end of this season. The Islanders were one of two bidders seeking approval to develop the property next to the racetrack. New York City FC of Major League Soccer proposed a stadium, retail space, community park, and a 2-acre soccer facility. So, looks like the Islanders aren't going anywhere.
No, it doesn't look like they're going to go anywhere at all. And quite frankly, I'm glad for them. I'm happy for them that they're getting this issue resolved. And be honest with you, we've talked about it on this program. If they didn't get this issue resolved, bye John Tavares.
Oh yeah,
he's not going to stay around there.
Absolutely,
he's gone. And he still may leave. But I think this puts him in a position now where if he leaves, he'll be booed out of that stadium every single time he goes there, because they made this effort to change venues in part because of their players.
Yeah, and like you said, with if Tavares leaves because the Islanders are still struggling with building issues, nobody's going to blame him. Now, if he leaves, they've got this new arena coming. If he leaves now Tavares is the bad guy. I actually see him signing.
I think he will. I think this will make him sign. Because
they've got some good players there now. They've got he's not the only guy like he had been. They've got some good young talent coming up through. They're going to be a good team in the very near future, and if not already. I mean, they're sitting in a playoff spot for crying out loud right now, so... But yeah, and I also see, I guess the lease for the Barclays Center ends at the end of next season. And, from breaking ground, it takes about 18 to 24 months to build an NHL-sized, NHL-quality venue. So that looks like the 1919-1920 season, they're still going to be needing an arena.
Yeah.
I think one more farewell season at Nassau.
Well, that's what I thought. But then again, we were it might have been a month ago on podcast, something about Gary Bettman said that it's not a viable option for the team. But I still see they've increased the seating capacity there at Nassau Coliseum to 15,000 fans now. And that's what I would think they would do, is just go back to Nassau Coliseum and play there for, one, possibly 2 seasons until this building is completed.
Yeah, if they were to break ground, let's say in the next 3 to 4 months on this new facility, because it sounds like they want to get started on the construction. It should be ready for the 2021 season. So next season they'll be in Barclays Center. That's when their lease runs out. I see them going back to Nassau for one more season, have a farewell season, a proper farewell, like they should have had all along, and then celebrate every home game that they have at that building.
Oh yeah,
until the end of that season, and then the start of the following season is when they move in to their new building.
Right, and on top of that, I think the fans know going to the Nassau Coliseum that this is it. Yep. They're not coming back.
Right.
When they leave this time, it's over.
And putting them out at Belmont Park puts them, a little bit closer to where their roots of the fans are. Brooklyn is pretty much right in New York City, so putting them out at Belmont Park is at least a little bit closer to their fan base. Right. And I think is a better option for them. So and the mock-ups for the sketches for the new arena look like it's going to be a pretty nice place. Now they're not going to have the expansive space that they have in Detroit because it is New York City after all. Space is a premium there, but they're going to do a bang-up job with this new arena. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. All right, now let's one more note about New York. Did you notice that the ice plant has been delivered and is now being set up in New York for the Winter Classic?
Yes, they have a time-lapse camera now.
They arrived. The truck arrived on the 18th, I believe.
Yeah.
So construction of the rink is well underway. There's an article about it that has all the links to where you can follow like you said, they have a webcam set up, which I think gives you about a 15-minute delayed live picture of what's going on inside the stadium.
Right.
So you can see the rink being built. So we're getting close to the big outdoor game.
Getting close. And once again, Wayne, this is the first time that the New York Rangers have hosted a Winter Classic. They've played in one before, but they haven't hosted it. The games that were held at Yankee Stadium were part of the Coors Light Stadium series. So, New York's really excited about this. I can tell you, this has been on their list for quite a while.
Yep. So, and the fact that they're having it, they did one at Yankee Stadium, so now they're doing one at Citi Field, which kind of evens things up a little bit. So it should be a fun time.
Yep.
And the weather looks like it's going to cooperate for the most part over the next couple of weeks. They're looking at high 30s, low 40s, occasional 50s, which is about right for setting up. I mean, obviously they'd like it to be a little bit colder, but it's going to be okay for building ice. So, and there's big articles on NHL.com that explains all the process that goes into building an ice rink. It takes about a week to 10 days for that to happen. So, okay. The last story I've got of interesting note talks about the other outdoor game that actually took place this week at Lansdowne Park in Ottawa, where the temperatures at puck drop was 12 degrees Fahrenheit. And they ended up falling all the way to 7 degrees by the end of the game.
Yeah.
Craig Anderson made 28 saves to help the Senators to a 3-0 win against the Montreal Canadiens. The NHL 100 Classic was played in front of a sellout crowd of $33,959. I mean, 33,959 people.
Yes.
Total attendance for the league's 23 regular season outdoor games now stands at 1.242 million, an average of 54,012 per game. So, obviously, Canada doesn't possess the large football stadiums that we have here in the U.S. of football and or baseball. So their outdoor games, when they do have them, are not going to draw as many. A sellout crowd of 33,000, that's roughly the size of Fenway Park. Well, no, Fenway's close to 40 now, 38, right. 39. But when I was growing up, it was about 33,000 at Fenway Park. So still a lot of people to watch a hockey game.
Yep.
But it was a good time. But the thing with that game, though, as good as it was, and it looked so cold, I talked to actually one guy that I refereed last Sunday night, and one of the teams that I refereed has a number of guys who are Canadian. They're Canadians living down here in the U.S., so they all play on the same team essentially. And he was saying he had a couple buddies at the game, and he said they were cold.
I bet they were.
He said they were cold, but it made easier by drinking plenty of beer. So. But it sounded like the atmosphere was very festive. Everybody was very happy despite the cold weather. But man, all the players looked cold. You saw a lot of players with hoods on and hooded sweatshirts underneath their jerseys and that kind of stuff. But not quite as cold as the Edmonton-Montreal game back in the early 2000s. But this one was probably one of the coldest outdoor games that we've certainly colder than any of the ones held in the U.S.
Right.
So that's the trouble with having outdoor games in Canada. Sometimes it gets really cold up there.
Right, that's right.
They should do their outdoor games in October or November before it gets too cold.
Yeah.
Or do them in March when it's starting to warm up.
Yeah.
So yeah, well underway on the outdoor season. All right, now as far as honors and milestones this week, we have a couple of milestones. Dallas Stars coach Ken Hitchcock won his 800th NHL game in a 4-0 victory against the Blackhawks American Airlines Center on Thursday. Hitchcock is the third coach in NHL history with 800 wins, joining Blackhawks coach Joel Quenneville and Scotty Bowman, who's way ahead of the two of them, with 1,244 wins. Hitchcock, who turned 66 on Sunday, has an NHL record of 800 and 488 and 114 with 88 ties with the Stars, Flyers, Blue Jackets, and Blues. He has 296 victories in 2 stints with Dallas. And the other milestone this week, Dustin Brown scored 44 seconds into overtime in his 1,000th NHL game to give the LA Kings a 2-1 win against the Avalanche at Staples Center on Thursday. Brown beat goalie Semyon Varlamov with a wrist shot over his glove to lift the Kings to a 5th consecutive home win, their longest streak since winning 6 straight back in November of 2016. Brown and Dave Taylor are the only Kings to play their first 1,000 games for LA. Brown's career has He has 245 goals, 290 assists, 535 points, and 608 penalty minutes, all with LA. He's off to his best start since 2011-2012 when he had 54 points, with 13, 16, and 29 in 36 games. And last year he only had 36 points in 80 games and hadn't scored more than 29 points per season from 2012 through 2016, despite not missing more than a game or two here and there during those years. His best season was 07-08 with 33 goals, 27 assists in 78 games. So Brown's having a kind of a comeback year here.
Yes, he is. And,
big part of the reason why.
Yeah, can be said.
Yep.
His comeback year is a big part of the reason why the Kings are playing the way they are. Yep. Another team that I don't see any doubt now they're going to make the playoffs. I really believe it. So take a total collapse. Of course, you have to throw Kopitar in that mix too. He's having a great year.
Yep. He just recently played his 1,000th game.
Right.
We talked about that last week or the week before. And then the other milestone I saw this week, and it's kind of not one that's really means a whole lot, other than the fact that it is a milestone. The Maple Leafs scored their 20,000th goal in franchise history this week. Now, unfortunately, the article I found that stat in didn't say how many other franchises have scored 20,000 goals, but I believe the Bruins and Montreal are two teams that have scored 20,000 goals already. But I'm not sure if they're the only three.
Right.
Obviously, New York, Chicago, and Detroit would be the other three that really are the only ones that would be at that plateau. But I haven't done the research to look up to see whether all original six teams have gotten that 20,000 goal or not.
Right.
All right, now on to our three stars of the week. Chicago Blackhawks Patrick Kane, Philadelphia Flyers goaltender Brian Elliott, and New York Islanders right wing Josh Bailey have been named NHL's three stars for the week ending December 16th. Patrick Kane registered 4 goals and an assist, including a pair of decisive goals to help the Blackhawks to a 3-0 record to extend their overall winning streak to 5 games. Elliott went 3-0 with a 1.31 goals against average and .943 save percentage to guide the Flyers to their 6th straight win on the heels of a 10-game skid. Kind of a streaky team there. And then Bailey posted a 4-4-8, so 8 points, including his first career hat trick in 4 games to help the Islanders pick up a pair of wins last week. So kudos to those 3 guys. All right, we are on to power rankings.
We are on, and Wayne, I tell you what, this week is my week, and I've already made my announcement that I was going to make about the Vegas Golden Knights. But I'm going to continue to talk a little bit about the upcoming playoffs as I see them and read these down from 17 to 1, because the number 17 team may very well replace one of the 16 teams that are, as I see it right now, the teams in the playoffs, odds on.
Fair enough.
Number 17 is Pittsburgh. They don't factor into the playoffs at this moment, but I think they very well will be in the playoffs come the end of the season, so I put them down. Number 16 is Minnesota. Number 15 is Chicago. Number 14 is Calgary. Number 13 is the New York Islanders. And the only team right now that isn't sitting in a playoff position other than Minnesota is the Calgary Flames, but I firmly believe they will be in the playoffs. And we said that at the beginning of the season. We picked them to be in the playoffs. Number 13, the New York Islanders. Number 12 is the Boston Bruins. Number 11 is the New York Rangers. Number 10, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Number 9, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Number 8, the New Jersey Devils. Number 7, the Washington Capitals. Number 6, the Los Angeles Kings. Number 5, the Winnipeg Jets. Number 4, there they are, the Vegas Golden Knights. Number 3, the Nashville Predators. Number 2 is the St. Louis Blues. And, guys, seems like every week a broken record. The number 1 team is the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's what I have for the week.
Fair enough.
And that's how it goes.
Yep. I like to see Boston still continuing to climb. I think this is the highest point we've had them in the power rankings so far this year.
Yes, deservedly so too. 7 out of 8 points in the last 4 games.
Yep. And then do you have it broken down to the point where you can say where you have Carolina?
No, I would put Carolina at number
I had them at 21.
Them at 20.
Yeah, I had them at 21. So
Okay.
I have Philly ahead of them, just ahead of them. So, and I think Carolina and Philly have identical records as of this moment right now. But Philly right now is playing better than them, so that's why I have Philly ahead of them.
Yeah, it's a tiebreaker situation between those two.
But I see Edmonton is starting to climb. I see Vancouver's falling. Granted, their injuries have a lot to do with that.
Detroit's falling.
I see Detroit falling. I see Colorado falling. And Anaheim dropped a little bit this week, but I think it's, their injuries are keeping them down there. So,
right.
And Toronto is going to climb when they get Moss to Matthews back. So, all right, let's look ahead to next week. Carolina has just 3 games. Of course, we got the Christmas break built into this week. We've got a 3-day period, the 24th, 25th, 26th, where there are no NHL games at all. Don't know what I'm going to do with myself those 3 days.
Yeah, I can make it through 3 days.
It is only 3 days, so
it's when it starts getting out to 5 and 6 days, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, that Olympic break would have been horrible without NHL hockey, right?
Yeah.
Although it's not a break from hockey completely. This year we'll be able to double up on it. All right, so this week Carolina is playing at home against Buffalo on the 23rd. That's the last day before the break. And then coming out of the break, they have Montreal at home on the 27th, and then at home against Pittsburgh on the 29th. So 3 home games for Carolina, and they got to win 2 of them if they want to continue to climb.
I agree with you. I think they will win 2 of those games, the way they've been playing.
Yep.
But
I think all 3 are winnable, but
yep.
Whether they will or not remains to be seen. Now, the Rangers have 3 games as well.
Three games. Tomorrow night we play the Toronto Maple Leafs in a rematch, and that ought to be that's Hockey Night in Canada game. So don't miss that one. That'll be a very good game at the Garden. I think it is on NHL Network tomorrow night. Let me make sure on that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But I believe that's correct.
Because the Hockey Night in Canada games have been on NHL Network pretty much from the start of the season. So
right, and they've been coming in 6 o'clock, 6:30 with Ron McLean. It is an NHL Network game. Ron McLean comes on, I think either at 6 o'clock or 6:30, and they'll get it going. That's always a good thing to watch.
It's the only way you and I have a chance to watch Coach's Corner. So
that's right. Thank God for that.
Thank for the NHL Network for carrying the Hockey Night in Canada feed, because down here we don't have CBC. Now, when I was living in Maine, we had CBC there. They carried CBC on the local cable networks up there. Yep.
Those guys do such a good job on the hockey game that they're covering.
So in the years before NHL Network came around, I was able to watch Hockey Night in Canada when I was living up there.
Oh man,
so
that would be heaven. I would love that. They don't give the full Hockey Night, the pregame. They don't give the full. You get 30 minutes of it. That's all you get.
Yep.
But it's going on for an hour or two.
Yep.
Anyways, we play Toronto, then we play Washington after the break on the 27th, and that game as well is televised. That is the Wednesday night rivalry game against the Washington Capitals. Another great game you're not going to want to miss.
Nope, that's going to be a good one.
And the Capitals are playing very well.
Yep.
Odds on that game, I don't know. I think New York's going to come ready to play that game, especially with it being in the Garden. So that'll be interesting. And then finally on the 29th, we make our first trip ever to the Little Caesars Arena to play the Detroit Red Wings. And I will not miss that game either. That'll be another great game to watch.
Yep, the Rangers should get a win in that one.
Hoping so.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
All right, the Bruins have 3 games as well this week. Kind of a theme going on this week, the 3-game week. Everybody seems to be playing that last day before and the first day coming out of the break. So
right.
Full slate of games both on the 23rd and the 27th, and Boston is no exception. They have Detroit at home on the 23rd, and then Ottawa at home on the 27th. And then they go to Washington on the 28th to play against the Capitals. So exactly one night after the Washington Capitals play the Rangers, the Bruins turn around and go to their building to play them. But of course, both teams will be playing a second night of a back-to-back. So you don't see there won't be an advantage per se. There's always, if one team on that second night of a back-to-back, if one team has played back-to-backs and the other team hasn't. Generally speaking, you can pretty much guess the team that had the extra day's rest is going to come out on top in most cases. Doesn't always happen that way, but they certainly have a distinct advantage where not having played the night before. But in this case, the Bruins will be playing the Capitals. Both teams in that game will have played the night before, so no one will have the advantage in that sense. But that's the game I've got circled this week to watch, not only because of the fact where the Bruins should beat Detroit and they should beat Ottawa, even though Ottawa's given them fits over the past several years. But Washington has beat Boston 11 games in a row, going back 3 or 4 years now, no matter where they play, in Washington or in Boston. And I really, really hope that Boston can break that string on the 28th.
They stand a good chance.
Even though the game is in Washington. Both teams are playing very well, so it could go either way. Right now, the Bruins seem to struggle whenever Braden Holtby's in net. So I'm hoping that Holtby won't be in net that night. All right, so let's, I don't know, is there any other games that you wanted to talk about that are going to be going on over the next couple of days?
Not really. I'd keep my eyes, if I were you, on games involving anyone in the Metro Division right now. The things are tight. As I said last night, 2 shootouts and an overtime game. If one of your teams if your favorite team is a Metro Division, of course, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like every single game is playoff intensity.
Yep.
And as I said, I'd be surprised if it stays up this that you're looking at all 8 teams like this for the remainder of the year. I'm thinking that at some point some of these teams are going to break off and fall behind. But it's not happening right now, and it's perplexing, but it's making it an incredibly exciting season to watch.
Yeah, I mean, right now, like you said, the 8th place team is got a legitimate shot at making the playoffs. They really, really do. I mean, who's in 8th right now in there? Is it Carolina still?
It's Carolina. Carolina by a tiebreaker.
Yep. Yeah, and they're tied with Philadelphia, and they're only 3 points out of a playoff spot. So they're dead last, but 3 points out of a playoff spot. So, yeah, the Metro right now is a lot of fun to watch for sure. But as of or coming up, there's really no other games tonight really that are earth-shattering. Montreal plays Calgary. Those Canadian games are always fun to watch. But other than that, you got Capitals, Coyotes, and Wild Panthers, and Flyers, Sabres. Those don't really jump out at me as great games to watch unless you're fans of those particular teams. But tomorrow night, Saturday night, 15 games. So only one team is not playing.
That's right.
Tomorrow night. And there's some good games on the slate for tomorrow night. You got Capitals and Golden Knights playing each other. Predators and Stars. Kings and Sharks. Those California teams are always fun. Canadiens, Oilers. So Montreal's on that Western Canada road trip. Maple Leafs and Rangers, of course, are playing. Some good games there.
Incredible.
Wild and Lightning. Blackhawks, Devils. Ducks, Penguins. I mean, you name it, up and down the board. There's some great games tomorrow night. And then coming out of the break, there's 11 games that first night, and you've got Blue Jackets, Penguins right off the bat, and those two played last night, and that game was feisty.
Right.
There was a lot of, even Malkin and Crosby were getting into the scrums last night.
Oh, yeah.
So that game should be fun. This one will be in Pittsburgh. Last night was in Columbus. Yep. Yeah. You've got Canadiens, Hurricanes, of course, coming out of that break. Predators, Blues right off the bat, coming out of the break. Stars, Wild. Oilers, Jets. If the Oilers are going to climb the standings out there, they're going to have to beat the Jets. And then the Golden Knights are in California playing the Ducks. So, yeah, some good games. Even though we don't have a lot of games over the weekend, there's some good games on either end of that break. So, all right. I guess it's time to move on to Minor League Hockey Minute.
Our Minor League Hockey Minute, Wayne.
And this is where I wanted to talk about the World Junior Championships. I couldn't really find any good stories in the American League or the ECHL to talk about. It seems like their press is pretty much taking the week off for Christmas already. Because everything I've found on there is just game recaps, and those are just, kind of boring unless you're following one of those teams closely. But I wanted to talk about World Juniors. I know people in the U.S. don't really care so much about the World Junior Championship, but it's big just about everywhere else in the world.
Right.
It's the best tournament in the world involving players 20 and under, without a doubt.
Right.
And this year, Team USA is the host.
Right.
We're the host country for this tournament. It's being held in Buffalo.
And they have held it before there.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think the World Championship will ever be held in the U.S. in a city that is not a traditional hockey market. I think every time the Americans get awarded the World Junior, it's going to be in places like Buffalo, Detroit, Minneapolis. North Dakota even hosted it one year. I think the last time the Americans had it, it was at the University of North Dakota, Fargo, and out in that area. Boston, those are the types of cities that are going to be hosting because they know they're going to draw crowds there no matter what.
Right.
But if you want to see the future of NHL hockey, you want to see the future players, some of these kids have been drafted already. Obviously, the 19 and 20-year-olds will have been drafted by their respective teams, but have not made the team for whatever reason. But you can also see a bunch of kids that will be drafted this coming June and next June. So it's a fun tournament to watch. I always try to pick up a few games here and there. But this year, there are two pools in the World Junior Championship, Group A, Group B. Group A has U.S., Canada, Denmark, Slovakia, and Finland. Group B has Russia, Sweden, Czech Republic, Switzerland, and Belarus. And the highlight game in terms of pool play, you mentioned at the beginning of the show, is the outdoor game being held on Friday the 29th of December between Canada and the U.S., at New Era Stadium, home of the NFL's Buffalo Bills. So it's going to be an outdoor game at a football stadium. The stadium has a capacity of 71,608. It's in Orchard Park, New York. And it should be fun to see them try to play games, especially if the weather patterns line up and we end up having a bunch of... do you see the Buffalo Bills game last week or the week before? When they had some lake effect snow in Buffalo, and the snow, they were plowing the field between between plays at that stadium. So it's going to be interesting to see them try to attempt an outdoor game in Buffalo on the 29th of December. So
what time is that game, Wayne?
That game is at, let's see, it's the website for the tournament says 1500 GMT, so that's GMT minus 5. So I think that's 3 o'clock Eastern.
3 o'clock?
I think so.
Okay.
GMT minus 5 is Eastern time zone, right?
Oh, I'm going to take your word for that. I don't know.
I think Greenwich Mean Time is kind of the world's clock, and I think Eastern time zone's minus 5. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. You can tweet me at Wayne Halley 9 if you think I'm dumb and don't know. But yeah, I believe it's
on that, Wayne.
I believe it's 3 o'clock Eastern in that game. But of course, NHL Network is probably going to carry it. I don't have the TV schedule in front of me, but they generally do carry a lot of the World Junior Championships, particularly U.S. and Canada games. And with that game featuring the U.S. versus Canada, I would bet quite a bit that the NHL network is going to have that game. So it'll be a fun game to watch, and I wish I could watch it. I'll probably have to watch it on tape delay because Friday is a day that I rarely get off from work, only because it's a busiest day of the week for us in that business. So. But anyway, U.S. versus Canada on the 29th in the outdoor stadium, and then, of course, you got a bunch of... But there are games already going on. I don't have it in front of me, but there are games already going on. Here we go, games. There's some pre-tournament games that have already been happening, and I don't have results here, but that it looks like that Belarus team is not going to be much of an opponent of some of the teams. I think the Americans played them and beat them like 14-0 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, they have the play-in games, and Belarus obviously, sometimes is on that bubble. Latvia, those types of teams will show up. They may show up one year, and then the next year they're not there. They happen to win out in the tournament play before the tournament began. So, but needless to say, it's going to be interesting. I watch it every year. I don't miss it.
Now here I found the games. Let's see if the game's going on so far. Denmark and Switzerland went to overtime. Sweden beat Denmark 13-1. Belarus played a junior team from Buffalo. It says the Buffalo Junior Sabres, and Belarus beat them 5-0. And the Buffalo Junior Sabres they're nowhere near like a CHL quality junior team. It's a lower tier junior team, to say the least. USA beat Belarus 14-0. Canada beat Czech Republic 9-0. So it looks like early on the favorites is probably going to come down to Canada, Russia, US, and Sweden by the looks of things. That would be my prediction at this point. But yeah, World Juniors, extra hockey is always good.
Absolutely.
And see, the 26th, the first night of games, is the one of the 3 nights that we don't have hockey. So I guarantee you NHL Network will have some of those games.
Oh, yeah. They'll have the whole day on.
Yeah. So on that day, you have Czech Republic playing Russia. You have Belarus playing Sweden, Canada playing Finland, and Denmark playing U.S.
Yeah.
So it all lines up for a Russia, Sweden, Canada, USA getting wins on the opening day of that tournament.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I agree.
You heard it here first. All right. Anything else you wanted to add before we move on to yours? Oh, I wanted to also, in looking for a minor league hockey minute or whatever article, I did find an article on the KHL website that had Russia boasting a 2-1 win over Canada in the 2017 Channel 1 Cup, which was being held in Russia. Now, the U.S. didn't have a team in this little tournament, but Russia was boasting that big win over Team Canada, their biggest rival, is how I think the article said it. But it's important to note for those outside of Russia that Canada obviously wouldn't have had their best team there. But it was a team made up of a lot of players that are eligible and may play for Team Canada in the Olympics.
Very good.
And most of those players play in the KHL currently. So.
Oh, okay.
On both sides, both Russia and Canada. All right. And you had a KHL story.
I had a KHL story, and I haven't done a KHL story, Wayne, in weeks. I've been focusing on the AHL and other leagues that I can try and come across. But when I saw this picture, and Wayne, I pointed it out to you, it is a fascinating picture online. And it really drew me in, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to make that my minor league pick of the week. If you go on, if our listeners are listening to this and you're halfway interested, go on to the KHL website. You can go on there by typing in en.khl.ru, en.khl.ru. That'll take you on to the KHL website, which Wayne and I keep abreast of quite frequently.
Well, that's the English. That's the English version. If you read Russian, you can just go to khl.ru, and that'll take you to the Russian version.
Yeah, go to the Russian version and have at it. You can really go to town there, because I wouldn't be able to make heads or tails out of any of that. But there is a picture in the news section right now of Sergei Mozyakin, and as you know, Wayne and I mention him quite frequently on this show. Odds on the best player in the KHL, Sergei Mozyakin, who's a forward for Metallurg Magnitogorsk. He is literally, with his skates on the ice, parallel to the ice. Now, Wayne and I think that he is falling over when they took this picture. But at the moment they took the picture, he's not falling over. And I don't know how he does this. It's not trick photography. He may be using his skate to prop him up, but it is an incredible picture of his skating ability. And he is a great skater, Sergei Mozyakin. The article that I've got off the KHL website is entitled, Mozyakin Reaches New Milestone, but Magnitka loses out in a game that was a shootout. Vityaz beat Metallurg Magnitogorsk 2-1 in a shootout. Sergei Mozyakin returned from injury, and he's been out for 12 games, and immediately got back to what he does best. The record-breaking forward showed he'd lost none of his sharpness during a 12-game absence, scoring his 300th goal in KHL regular season play. The big moment came on a power play early in the third period when Mozyakin rattled in a shot from the point. Home goalie Igor Seprikhin saw the shot late, but may feel he'd like the moment back, as he was beaten over the glove. However, Mozjakin's latest milestone was not the final word in this game. Vityaz tied it up with 8 minutes to play when Berna Radulic scored a power play goal of his own, and the game went on all the way to a shootout. And there, Vityaz claimed the win. Saprikin avenged himself on Mozjakin with a save, and Alexei Kopechkin produced the only goal of the shootout. He was the only successful goal to get in for the game, and of course the verdict went to Vityaz 2-1. If you look at the standings in the KHL right now, it's like there's two teams, SKA and CSKA, and that's it. SKA has already got over 100 points, and I think it's
not even January yet.
It's not even January. CSKA, I believe, is like 8 to 10 points behind them, and then forget it. The rest of the teams are all in the 70s. So
now it's important to note. It's important to note that they use a 3-point system over there too. So
that's right. They're going to have more points, but the Metallurg is not the cream of the crop in the East this year. Akbars is the top team in the East. So and of course they've had years where they've been very good as I've studied the KHL. But anyways, that's my minor league minute. Thank you very much.
Metallurg's in 5th place right now. Wow.
Right.
And they've won the championship recently.
Please check out that picture. I will say it again. It is an unbelievable picture of Sergei Mozjakin.
Yeah, it is. Yep. Yeah, and you're right. It says SKA and CSKA are running away with things right now. And, yeah, wow. 31 wins, 4 losses for SKA.
Yeah.
It's like they're cheating.
Yeah, no.
And we could debate all day on why that is in the KHL, but that's for another show. All right, well, let's go on to the College Hockey Minute. That's actually going to be a quick one because last week there were only 16 games going on all over the country total. And there was only one upset of a ranked team, and that was when unmarked Dartmouth went to Denver and beat them. Denver's the number 2 team at the time. A 5-4 win for Dartmouth. Every other game was pretty much between either unranked teams or the ranked teams won their games. Upcoming this week, there is no games at all. All 60-plus teams in the NCAA are off this week, and that's mostly due to the fact that almost every college in the country is off until after January for their winter breaks. Of course, the University of Maine hasn't had a game last week or this week, so there's nothing to talk about there. Now, last week I talked about the pairwise rankings, and those really haven't changed due to the lack of games. Certainly no more than 1 or 2 teams. They may have moved up up or down 1 or 2 spots. I'm not even going to talk about that. This week I'll talk about the U.S. College Hockey Online poll, which as of right now, and this is kind of a voting poll. It's not a statistical. The pairwise is a statistical ranking of how each team is that basically a computer decides. This is a poll on various members of the press, coaches, etc., that decide who they think are the best teams are. So in this poll, at number 10, we have Minnesota. At number 9, we have Ohio State. At number 8, we have Northeastern. At number 7, Minnesota State. Number 6 is North Dakota. Number 5 is Cornell. Number 4 with 1 first-place vote is Clarkson. Number 3 with 6 first-place votes is Notre Dame. At number 2 with 8 first-place votes is Denver. And at number 1 this week with 35 first-place votes is St. Cloud State. St. Cloud State is sitting at 12-2-1 on the year, and they're the only team in the country. No, I'm sorry, scratch that. They're one of 2 teams in the country with only 2 losses. The other one being Cornell, but Cornell's only played 12 games total, where St. Cloud State has played 15 games. So, and I also want to note, as far as the homer coverage, Maine actually received a vote in this week's poll.
Oh, wow.
They got 1 vote, which means somebody out there voted them in the 20th spot in this week's poll. So they got 1 vote, and if you actually counted the number of votes, because the way the poll works is they show the top 20, and then they show a box underneath that says other teams receiving votes, and then they list all the teams and how many votes they got. Well, Maine and Bentley are tied in with dead last in that list with one vote each. And what that means essentially is, well, Maine's on the board anyway.
Yeah.
So if they were to include those as part of the poll, Maine would be sitting tied for 33rd with Bentley. So yeah, and Maine has a winning record. It's the first time they've had a winning record at the Christmas break in quite a few years. So.
That's great news. Very, very good.
Team,
Kudos, Wayne, to your team.
Maine fans are encouraged by that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. That's enough of college hockey. Let's move on to our picks of the week.
All right.
And I've got kind of a funny one to talk about, and I'm sure you saw it. Of course, you know last week the Rangers played the Bruins at Boston, and it was a bit of a celebration for the Boston players and the Boston fans, where the Boston players walked into the building wearing holly jolly swag before the game.
Yeah.
So this is an article on NHL.com. And the article goes as follows. The weather outside was frightful, but the Boston Bruins outfits were so delightful. Patrice Bergeron was glistening like a treetop in his sequin getup, while several others appeared wrapped up in holiday cheer as the Bruins made quite the entrance before their game against the New York Rangers at TD Garden back on last Saturday. There were no little bit of noise from the NHL.com site. I've been getting that all day. There were no Grinches in sight. To the contrary, the Bruins were merry and bright. And then, of course, they show links to various videos where it shows Boston Bruins players walked in. And the ones that you can see readily right on the NHL.com is Patrice Bergeron in his bright red sequin tuxedo, posing with David Backes. David Backes wearing his it's a Kelly green suit with stockings, Santa Claus heads, snowflakes, and candy canes and Christmas bells all over this green suit.
I actually saw this. This is really something.
Brad Marchand comes in a red suit with all kinds of Christmas-related stuff printed all over it. And then they showed Tuukka Rask coming in what is he's wearing a suit, but the print looks like one of those ugly. The print looks like one of those ugly Christmas sweaters.
Yeah.
And then they showed Charlie McAvoy coming in. His suit is actually black. It's one of the few that aren't bright colored red or green or one of the Christmas colors. But his suit is black. But he's got printed all over his suit just a string of Christmas lights, multicolored Christmas lights all over his suit. So it's quite interesting. There's a link to the article in the show notes if you want to see video of these players coming in. It was pretty funny to see them all come in dressed that way.
That is good, man.
All right.
That was really good. I saw that article. I actually looked at those pictures and I flipped out laughing at it. But I thought the game was in Madison Square Garden. Then I realized now, as we sit here and talk about it, that's right. It was at the TD Garden.
Of course, I watched the NESN feed of that, and they did do a story that night on the players' entrance. They talked about it. So too bad the Bruins didn't come out with the 2 points in that one.
Yes, we talked about that.
Yep, could have gone either way. But anyways, is it okay for me to go? Yep, go for it.
Okay, my pick of the week, Wayne. We've been tough on this guy. We've been harsh on him for and not in a mean way. I would say we've been pulling articles that we've seen off the website NHL.com. But I wanted to tell you that I was really touched this week when I saw this, and it you can say what you want, but once again, it shows that players in the NHL have class. They are upstanding people in the community, and I'm very pleased to report about this week. And the article I picked was Phil Kessel plays Santa Claus, grants a Christmas wish list item for a young fan. The Penguins forward spots a sign in the crowd, spots a sign and signs a stick as an early gift for a young girl. Just call him Kessel Claus. Pittsburgh Penguins forward Phil Kessel made a young fan's Christmas wish come true before Monday's game against the Colorado Avalanche. One Penguins fan was lucky enough to score seats right next to the Pittsburgh bench Monday night in Denver, and came prepared with a sign touting her love for lovable Pens winger Phil Kessel. All I want for, quote, on the sign it read, "All I want for Christmas is a sign, stick, and picture," she wrote. Well, Kessel got her stick, and she immediately broke down in tears of joy. Sometimes Christmas can come early. And if you saw the replay of the video, I mean, some people would say, well, that made that girl's day. I beg to differ. That probably made that girl's life. I'm sure she'll never forget it. And those kinds of things happen all the time. But, you can say what you want. You may like Phil Kessel on the ice. You may think he's a great guy. You may not like him. But, I mean, for him to do that kind of thing is typical of what type of people represent the NHL. And once again, he's having a great year, but that's a class thing to do. And it really got me to say, well, I'm going to give the guy some kudos and credit this week for what he did. So hats off to Phil Kessel.
For sure. Yep. Great story. I did see that article today on that one when I was going through and putting my show notes together. So yeah, great job with that one. All right. Well, I guess we're done for the week.
Yeah, I think so. A shortened week, Wayne.
Well, relatively. It's still almost a well over 90-minute podcast, but still.
Right.
Only 6 days, and next week we'll have even less to talk about because you have that 3-day break there where it's basically going to be looks like the league is going to be radio silent, because I even saw while you were talking there, I looked up and I happened to notice the NHL Network was saying that tonight's version of NHL Now, the show that comes on before the games start.
Yep.
Today is the last one for the year, so it looks like they're taking next week off.
Yeah.
So.
Oh well.
I think you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see very, very few articles and very, very little coverage around the league going on, even though some of the, outside of the 3 days that they're taking completely off, where it's pretty much going to be completely silent around the league. You're also going to have very few extra articles going on between between Christmas and New Year's. So as everybody takes a bit of a break before we get started, the playoff push in January. So,
right.
But if anything does happen, we'll have it on next week's show. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up then. As a reminder, you can tweet me. I'm at Wayne Halley 9. Steve is at SBall504man. If you want to discuss anything we discuss in the show, both of us do respond to tweets that are of a respective nature anyway toward us. There's always those trolls out there who just want to get you going, and depending on what their motive is, I may or may not respond to that crap. But but if you want to debate anything respectfully, I'm always game for that. So that's part of why we do the show is for all of us fans. We're fans too, and so are you the listeners, and we enjoy the game and we enjoy talking about it, which is why we do the show ultimately. So
that's right.
And then, of course, you can email us at feedback@thehockeyknights.com if you want to just send us an email. We're always open to those, too. So with that, we'll go ahead and end things. And I want to be the first to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and whatever. Happy Festivus. Whatever holidays you celebrate this time of year. And of course, we probably will do one more show before the New Year. So I'm not going to wish everybody a Happy New Year just yet, because we'll have one more show before the New Year comes around. At least I expect we will. And we'll go from there.
Wayne, I'm going to wish you and your family and everyone out there a Merry Christmas, and hope that it's the best one you ever had.
I hope so. I hope the same for you. And I hope the same for everybody who listens to us on a weekly basis, for sure. All right, well, let's go ahead and end things. And until next time, we will see you then. Have a good night.
Week.
Yeah, you too.